with Feral Focus. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my channel. Please hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more videos like this one, and thumbs up if you like this video. We're getting ready to go camping, and we're kind of using this as an opportunity to fix a lot of things that are needing to be fixed on our camper. And so I wanted to share with you today about valances, because one of our valances is falling halfway down. I'll show you that. This is our valance, and yep, some of it has fallen down. And so we're going to be repairing this, just putting it back in with probably some screws. But I thought I would take this opportunity to kind of share with you how I put this valance together. So there you can see it slides in. There's one of the tabs. Looks like that. And it slides into this T, so you can see how it kind of goes on there. And there really is no other way to attach this that I can think of without redesigning it into something totally different. So I've done that all the way around. And what I did was I took the valances that were in here, and I took the little tabs off of the ones that were in here, but it was missing quite a few, so I had to buy some replacements. So I used what was here, and then I bought some replacements, and I'm going to show you how I removed them and how I sewed these little valances, and then how I put the tabs on them. So I will show you how I sewed those on. But they turned out really cute, and this is messy. It's been camped in a lot, but when we get to our spot, I usually just kind of walk around and fluff them a little. Oh, see, that one's kind of loose too, so we might want to go around and kind of just touch them all up. When you're in an older camper, maintenance needs to happen, and that is definitely got to get fixed before our next trip. I did a complete video last year when we finished our remodel of our pop-up tent trailer. If you haven't seen it, go take a look. I'll put a link down below in the subscription. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a link in the description below so you can go take a look at that, and you'll see the finished product. And so some of our valances have fallen down. And when I put that video out almost a year ago, a lot of people have asked me how I made the valances. Now, I did a whole video on how I covered my cushions, which have held up great, by the way, and I just have really enjoyed them. And so a lot of people have asked me, how did I make the valances? So I'm going to show you that today. The first thing you want to do is choose your fabric, and I chose this fabric. You might recognize it. It's the cushion fabric that I put in my pop-up tent trailer remodel. And I thought this was my favorite part. It really is a pretty pattern, but I didn't want to go hog wild with patterns and just have too much. So I only put it on the cushions, and then I thought the valance is a tiny little piece of the decor of my spa-like tent trailer. So I chose to use this same pattern for my valance. And the first thing I needed to do was measure. And I know you can measure, but I'm just going to tell you how I did it. So pretend this piece of paper is my pop-up, just the base. So these short ends are the bunks. So here's a bunk slid out, and here's a bunk slid out. So there's curtains and valances all the way around in mine, and that's the way I wanted it. I love having the curtains closed if I want to close them, or open if I want to open them, and the valance goes all the way around. So first thing, you need to measure how long is that curtain rod, or whatever you want to call that little slider bar that holds your valance. You want to measure how long that is, and then how long it is here. These two are going to be the same, and these two are going to be the same. Does that make sense? So the first thing I did is I measured, and I'm going to talk about the long one because that's the one I'm replacing today. I'm actually just fixing it. I'm not replacing the valance. The valance is fine. It's just the little strip started to fall down. It was stapled in, and hubby is screwing it in. And I'm going to show you how he's doing that. But how all this time this was upside down. Should I do it over? I don't know. I think you get it. So the measurement I'm working with is the long one. And the curtain rod, it's basically 113 inches. The whole thing is 115 inches, 113 is the rod itself. So pick whatever number you want. That's the length you want that valance to be. But I wanted mine to bunch up a little bit, so you got to put a little extra in there. And I wouldn't want like 1.5 times, so I did 1 1/3. So how I did that was, I took this number 113, divided by 3, and then that is your third. So then you take the 113 plus that number, and I got 151. So right around 151, 150, that's going to be the length of this long one. Then you've got the same thing, whoopsie, with your short one. I had 82 and then the finished was 109, so it would bunch up a little. Now 109 is the length I bought my fabric, pretty much 109, 110, because I knew that I could take so many pieces out of that. So basically you have this piece of fabric, it's usually folded in half when you buy it, right? It's folded in half, and so it tells you it's however wide it is. So it's whatever that width is times 2 because it's folded in half. So maybe it's 60 inches, could be 45. I don't really remember how wide this was, probably 60. But I know that I could get all my valances in one piece if I did the smaller piece. And then I made my long pieces 2. So I just sewed 2 together. So that just gave me not using up so much fabric and having a bunch left over. This is the piece for the valance. Can you see this? This is just a little strip. So what this was I cut a strip, I cut a strip, I cut a strip, and I had all my valances out of this one. So this is a super long piece of fabric that's left over from my cutting of my strips. And so once you have them cut, basically you want to figure out how wide to cut them is the length you want them. So when you're in your pop-up, you maybe have some valances that are already in there. You could just copy that measurement if you want. I made mine a little shorter than the ones that were in there. They were just too long and I didn't want them that long. So I just kind of went in there with my tape measure, held it up, and that's where I wanted it. And it ended up being 8 inches. So that's what I wanted my finished product to be, 8 inches. So the width of each strip is going to be the length as I hang it. So that ended up being, it's going to end up being 8, so I cut it to 11. That gave me room for hemming. And I'm going to do a close-up video so you can see how I hemmed it. And I'm also going to show you how I reused my hardware and purchased also some new hardware to fill in. And I'm using the hardware that goes with my Kemper. Not all of these slides, little sliders are the same, so you'll want to look your own up. How I found mine was on the popupprincess.com. She's been a great source of information for me, and anything I need to know, I pretty much go there first. And so go there and look for your pop-up. If you have a Rockwood, you'll probably have the same sliders that I have, and I reused as many as I could, and I'm going to show you how I got them off just like nothing. It was really easy. You're probably intimidated to get those off the old ones. Just don't throw it away. Man, it's expensive to buy new ones. So I reused my old ones. I wasn't starting out that way. I was just like getting them off any way I could and kind of ruining them as I was going, and I thought, uh-oh, I better be gentle with these. I need to reuse them. And so I did. I'd like to show you how I got this to be 8 inches. And I paid attention to my pattern. As you can see, it's kind of centered in there. So when I was cutting my fabric, I was choosing to kind of cut my strips in a way that my pattern was in the middle. So there's 2 patterns, and this is the one that I chose in the middle, and it wasn't always the same. This is my leftover strips. You could see it was a really long piece of fabric that I used to cut these into strips. So I tried to get it all one piece, but this valance ended up being 2 pieces, and the bunk ends were 1 piece each. So I didn't want to overbuy my fabric. As you can see, I didn't have a whole lot left. So this was a tiny piece that was left over that didn't fit the measurements. So I'm going to use this piece to deconstruct and kind of show you how I came up with this. So I wanted my finished piece to be 8 inches. So the first thing I needed to decide is how wide this piece needed to be. This is where the actual hardware was going to go, right here. So I kind of made it so that there was a little bit of room on either side, and I'm just going to sew this directly onto the fabric. So the hem could be really small. So you can see it's just rolled over a couple of times. Can you see that? I'm going to open this up, this piece that I have left over, and kind of deconstruct it for you. So as you can see, I'm kind of the queen of tearing, but I folded over a tiny piece on this end. See that little tiny piece? And then I folded it to the size I measured. So the first thing I wanted to do was close my end. So I took that end and I folded it over twice, I ironed it, and I sewed a piece right there. Now my end was done. If I was going to sew 2 pieces together, and I did on my long side I sewed 2 pieces together, I'm going to do that first. Sew them together and then iron your seam. And what I did with my seam, I opened it, I ironed it, and then I turned under the ends. So let's pretend that this is a seam right here. Okay? So we've got this seam, sorry, right sides together. So there's my seam, and that's what it would look like. I have this seam. Pretend this is a seam. So now I'm just ironed it open and I've got these rough edges. So I would turn it under the same way I did the end. I turn it under for my seam so it's pretty. So that, and then sew it right there and sew it right there. So my seam is pretty good. I mean, it's just flat. I'll show it to you in a second. So turn under the end once, turn under the end twice and iron it, sew it, and now you're ready to do your hem and you're ready to do your piece that you're going to put your hardware on. So you're going to sew your, whoops, let me find the end I opened. So you're going to turn that under one time, boom, and then you're going to measure it and put it right there. I had a little ruler I was holding so that as I moved along I could check to make sure I was doing the same length on this little piece. And then as soon as I had it, I kind of pinned it and then I put it on my ironing board and I ironed it so that before I sewed it, it was kind of set. Then I sewed right here. So I folded it once. Remember, there's folded once. Turned that little piece under and ironed it. Then I sewed a strip right here. Then I had my flat piece. And then you're going to take this one. Hope I'm making sense. You're going to turn that over one time. See how little that is? And then turn it one more time and iron it. And then sew it. And now you're ready to put your hardware on. And so this was the hardware I ripped off. I'm going to take a second to show you how I got it off the old Valance. Can you really see it up close? You're getting too far away. You're way too far away. Okay. Okay, so that was easy, right? Just tear it off. So it ends up with these little strings. So what I did is I just kind of sat there while I was watching TV one night and with a pair of tweezers, I just kind of pulled all these little pieces off until they were all off. And it took me a little time, so I just did it while I was doing other things. And once I had it clean, then I was ready to sew it on. I had no problem whatsoever sewing this with my regular sewing machine. I just use a heavy-duty needle, not a special needle of any kind. The needles I buy are all-purpose. There's usually 1, 2, and 3 sizes in the pack. I just use the heaviest one. I broke a couple, but I usually have extras in my drawer, so it just happens. You know, if you need to wear safety goggles, I wear glasses, so I'm not too worried, but I would not want a needle to pop off and hit me in the eye. So, caution, careful. This is, you know, this is heavy. So I sewed, it just punched right through, no problem. I just sewed it right here, and I sewed it right here. I always made sure that this little slider, see this strip? See there's nothing on the end? I would cut this off right here and make sure that this slider was on the end. You want a slider on the end or it's just going to flop. You need that slider to be on the end. So I did have a lot of leftover little pieces. And then I just sewed, and I used up all my, almost all of my old. And then I didn't have enough to do the whole thing, so I did buy several boxes for replacement. And you're going to have to find out what kind of hardware you need. This was for the Rockwood, and I found this on the Popup Princess. She has so much good information. If you don't know which kind, then do a Google search on your camper and your fasteners. Some people have all kinds of creative ways that they're replacing this fastener. Mine was just this tape, so it was easy to do. I just bought this, and then I used up my old. So there you have it. That's pretty much how I did it. And then this is my finished Valance. As you can see, it has some, this is all pretty much the new. I did reuse all my old except for this little piece here, which I could use if I needed some replacement, and I had one box left over, so I didn't measure it all perfectly. I'm not a perfect person, so there you go. And so this was all done, and so when I got to my center, see how I folded in my seam, folded it under 2 times, sewed it down before I did my hem and before I did my top. So that's just kind of a nice, it looks good. That's how I did my Valance. So now we're gonna go put this back in the trailer. I want to put this on the slider before he screws in the bar that's falling down, because it is hard to put them up if you can't slide them in. So I highly recommend that you slide them off, slide them on. It's just impossible any other way. Or I suppose it's possible, but it's hard. So slide them off, slide them on. Here we go. Again.
Pulling out the staples they installed it with, because they're chintzy.
Okay.
And then we're going to add some screws. So I'm punching a hole in the plastic just so that it won't break the plastic when the screw goes in. So now we've got a hole for the screw. Use a very tiny one so it doesn't go through the top of the roof. And it's kind of a balancing act here. Doesn't take much to put in, so that will not be coming down again.
So that part is already still up. This is the part that's fallen down, so it's getting screws all the way across. But before we put all the screws in, we're going to slide this curtain back on and kind of put it to this side so that we don't have to worry about sliding it on when it's all the way to the corner. But basically it's going to go like that. So here's the piece, see the piece? And it's going to slide right on. Then I'm going to find another one, slide it right. Okay, and just show it it's all fixed. And hubby washed the ceiling. Thank you.
Yay! Okay, so on the Valance,
Valance.
Do you want to start over?
Just start.
Okay. On the Valance, I use these tiny little screws because obviously I'm concerned about going too deep and poking through the roof. So I added a little bit of wood glue at the tip of the screw, and we pre-drilled all the plastic because it's, you know, 1,000 years old, and we didn't want it busting, trying to put a new screw through that. So it fit nice and snug, put a little bit of wood glue at the top, and hopefully we'll never have to revisit this again.
So do a little tug on our broken spot.
Right here? I mean, the whole thing was busted pretty much.
Yep, it's all fixed. It's all back on. That's not going anywhere. All right, on to the next project.
Oh, we also did fix this too. The this plastic was fractured here, and I put a couple screws and some washers in just to give it a little bit more surface area to grip the plastic and not crack it again. So I think we're pretty good there.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something. I hope I was able to help in some way. If you have any questions, if I left anything out, please feel free to leave me a comment, and I'll do my best to help you with that. This is such a simple project. Really, you do not need sewing skills. You just need a machine and all the parts. Basically the fabric, and if you're going to reuse, you'll need that, or if you're going to buy new hardware, you'll need that. Otherwise, just fabric and a sewing machine and you're ready to go. So extra needles would be a good idea. I did go through a few needles because when you're punching through a little piece of plastic, sometimes you break them. And other than that, it was a super simple project. I would call pretty much a beginner could do this. So good luck. I hope you're having a great time remodeling your pop-up. I hope you're going to enjoy yours as much as we've enjoyed ours. We have such fun times in it, and I'm so looking forward to our next trip. If you'd like to see some of our travels and places that we're going, just please hit the subscribe button because I do post that. And if there's other repairs, we'll post that too. Thank you so much for watching this video. Happy travels to you. Happy trails. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.